Cedar braised elk really is a great representation of the indigenous flavors of Minneapolis. It's really got that embodiment and that aroma of being outdoors, and we just wanted to put that into this meal. My name is Sean Sherman. I am the owner of the Sioux Chef, and we are in Minneapolis. I grew up on Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and I am a member of the Ogallala Lakota Sioux tribe, and after a few years of my chef career, I realized that I really didn't know much about my own heritage, and it sent me on a quest to figure out what were my Lakota ancestors eating. And it was really important to try to figure out what are Native American foods and how can we utilize them today. I grew up with wild game, so it'd be hard to say when I first had elk, so I was probably very young. It's always been around the dinner table throughout most of my life. And a dish like this with the cedar braised elk, we just really want people to understand that no matter where you are in North America, there's indigenous history and flavors, and we can bring back a lot of that knowledge and food and showcase a wonderful history of indigenous ingredients. What I love about elk is such a rich protein, and it really has a lot of flavor. We wanted to use a piece that was going to be very lean with a little bit of fat so that we can slow roast it and let it stew and let it fall apart. The first thing we're going to do is just cut the elk down into manageable chunks. Season this pan with a little bit of sunflower oil and sear the elk just to get a little bit of caramelization around it. We season it with just a little bit of smoked salt to kind of give the sense of cooking over fire. To a braising pan, add the elk, add local maple syrup just to sweeten the broth a little bit, add the water, and add a little bit more smoked salt, and then we're going to put the cedar boughs over it. And the cedar boughs are really going to release a deep, rich flavor, and it's really going to smell like the forest. I'm going to put a lid on the braising pan. We're going to put this in the oven at a really low temperature and let it sit for about 14 hours. And it's really just going to be so nice and tender by the time it comes out. Pull the elk out and you'll know it's done because it's going to be beautifully caramelized, it's going to be steaming and just fall apart tender. We're utilizing some hand-harvested wild rice from the White Earth Reservation in Minnesota. It's really nutty. People are still hand-harvesting it in canoes every year. We're going to place the wild rice in the pot. We're going to place some sunflower seeds to cook with the wild rice, add the water, and then a little bit of salt. Put this over high heat, bring it to a boil, and let it simmer. Cook this rice until it's really nice and fluffy because we really want it to have a nice texture for the cakes that we're going to make. Once this rice is really cooked, we're going to put it right into the food processor while it's still hot, and we're going to pulse it just to make a nice paste out of it. Scrape this paste into a bowl, and we're going to add some more of the cooked rice so it has that texture of the whole rice. And then we're adding a little bit of salt, we're adding some of these wild spring onions, and we're adding a little bit of sunflower oil, and we're going to mix everything together to get it nice and evenly mixed. We're just going to use our hands and make a nice little rice ball, pack it lightly, and just form it into a nice cake. Heat up the griddle, put a little bit of sunflower oil on it, and place the cakes down. All we're looking for is a nice sear and just to warm it through. We just want to have, again, a little bit of caramelization on the outside of these cakes. And once it's seared really nice on one side, flip it over and let it caramelize on the other side. When the cakes are done, it's going to have a really nice crunchy sear on the outside and really nice and warm in the center. Wojapi is something that I grew up with as a child, and it's really one of my first childhood memories. It reminds me of being in my grandmother's kitchen. It's really just going to help the elk and all the pieces on the plate to kind of bring it together with a little bit of the acidity from the berries. To this pot, we're just going to add blueberries, blackberries, then raspberries, and then finally strawberries. Add some maple syrup to sweeten up the sauce, and add some water so it can cook down. Put this pot over a medium-high flame and bring it to a simmer. And we're really just looking for it to start to bubble up and to see the berries start to break down. Once everything is broken down, use a whisk and just whisk it into a really nice, smooth, but yet chunky sauce. And once the sauce is done and well mixed, it's going to have a really nice body to it. You're going to see a little bit of berry pulp in there, and it's going to look great on the plate. All of these flavors and pieces really are a great representation of this area, particularly around Minneapolis, and they really fit well on this plate and really balance each other out. The first thing we're going to do is prep our garnish. And add a little bit of sunflower oil to this griddle, add a little bit of thinly sliced sunchoke, add some wild onion, and we're going to add fiddlehead ferns, which is one of the first things that pop up in the spring. And once we caramelize one side, we're going to flip it over and we're going to caramelize the other side. We're going to remove them from the grill, set them aside, and get ready to plate them. To the plate, we're going to add one of the seared rice cakes. We're going to remove the elk from the braising liquid and take a nice little piece here and just break it apart, and you can see how tender it is the way it falls apart. We're going to add some of the pulled elk and garnish the plate with the sunchokes. some fiddlehead fern, and some of the seared wild onion. A spoon, some of the wojapi sauce to get right on the meat and a little bit right on the plate. And what we're looking for is just a little bit of sauce so it can intermingle with the rest of the flavors and really become a part of the dish. Finally, we're just going to garnish with a little bit of watercress, which will add a nice little bit of pepper to the whole plate. And there you have our cedar braised elk with wild rice cakes and wojapi. The cedar braised elk is perfect at this point. It's fall apart tender, it's caramelized, it's going really well with the wild rice cake, which has a lot of great earthy tone, the spring vegetables with the fiddlehead ferns, the grilled sunchokes, the grilled wild onions, wojapi, which adds a really nice sweetness to the smokiness of the rest of the plate, and the little bit of fresh watercress to kind of add a little bit of accent to everything. This dish really does honor the culinary history and the flavors of the indigenous foods that are here from this region. It really showcases that there is a place and an immense importance of indigenous cuisine in today's world.